Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your paycheck buys less, your groceries cost more, and your savings account, despite all your hard work, is quietly losing value month after month. Most people feel this happening, but very few truly understand why. Inflation isn't just an economic headline. It's the silent force shaping your daily life, your long-term goals, and the future of your money. And once you finally understand how it works, you'll start seeing your financial decisions in a completely different way. Welcome back to Invest Education Hub, your trusted source for learning how to invest smarter and build long-term wealth.
So let's just dive right in with a quote that honestly hits the nail on the head. Inflation is the quiet tax on your cash. I absolutely love this because it's so true. Unlike other taxes, you never get a bill in the mail for inflation. There's no line item on your pay stub. It just happens silently in the background. Every single dollar you have saved up is kind of like an ice cube sitting on the counter. Over time, it just gets smaller. And that loss of value, that slow drain on your purchasing power, is exactly what we're going to demystify today.
All right, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about what inflation actually feels like, that silent squeeze on your wallet. Then we'll pull back the curtain and see how economists actually measure this invisible force. After that, we'll look at the three main engines that get inflation going. Next up, we'll explore how inflation has different speeds. Some are healthy, some are not so good. Then we get to the really juicy part, who wins and who loses when prices rise. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a solid financial game plan so you know exactly how to protect your money. Okay, let's kick it off with Section 1, the silent squeeze. I want you to just forget all the complicated charts and economic jargon for a minute. What does inflation actually feel like in your real day-to-day life? Well, it feels like your money is just getting weaker, like it doesn't have the same punch it used to.
So at its very core, the definition is pretty straightforward. Inflation is just the rate at which the average price of everything we buy goes up. And here's the other side of that coin. As prices go up, the purchasing power of every single one of your dollars goes down. Think about it. If that cup of coffee you love used to be $2.50 and now it's $3, that's inflation in a nutshell. But it's not just about one thing. It's about the general, overall trend of prices rising across the whole economy year after year.
And this slide right here, this makes that abstract idea totally real. Let's walk through this little story. In year one, let's say you're making $3,000 a month. Your expenses, rent, groceries, gas, the whole shebang, come out to $2,400. That leaves you with a nice, solid $600 left over to save or invest. Awesome. Now let's fast forward to year two. Your income is exactly the same, still $3,000. But your rent went up a bit, groceries are definitely more expensive, and so is gas. Your total expenses are now $2,600. So here's the kicker. Even though you did nothing differently and your salary stayed the same, you now only have $400 left. That $200 that just vanished, that's the silent squeeze of inflation right there. Your money just lost some of its muscle. So that feeling of your budget getting tighter and tighter is very real. But how do economists and governments take that feeling and turn it into a cold, hard number? Well, let's move on to Section 2 and see how they actually measure this invisible force. The main tool they use, especially here in the United States, is something you've probably heard thrown around on the news, the CPI. That stands for the Consumer Price Index. Whenever you hear a news anchor say inflation was up 3% last year, this is the number they're talking about. It's basically the official yardstick we use to track how our cost of living is changing. So how in the world does the CPI work? Well, imagine the government has this giant, imaginary shopping basket. And they fill that basket with thousands of goods and services that a typical family buys. As you can see here, it's got everything. Your groceries, your rent, the gas for your car, healthcare, tuition, even things like clothes and movie tickets. Then, government statisticians go out and track the total cost of this exact same basket of stuff month after month, year after year. And this is where it all comes together. It really just boils down to simple percentage math. If the total price tag to buy everything in that basket was, say, exactly $100 a year ago, and today it costs $103 to buy the very same items, well, then the inflation rate for the year is 3%. That one little number gives us a snapshot of the average price change for all the stuff we spend our money on. Okay, so we know what it feels like. We know how it's measured. But that leads us to the biggest question of all, right? Where does inflation actually come from? What's causing that shopping basket to get more expensive in the first place? Let's jump into Section 3 and look at the three main engines that really drive inflation. All right, the first and most classic cause is something called demand pull inflation. The phrase to remember here is too much money chasing too few goods. This usually happens when the economy is humming along. Unemployment is low, people are feeling good about their jobs, maybe getting raises. Everybody feels confident and they all want to go out and spend money at the same time on new cars, vacations, home projects, you name it. The problem is, businesses just can't keep up with that huge surge in demand. There aren't enough goods on the shelves. And when way more people want to buy something than there is stuff available, what happens to the price? It gets pulled upwards. Now, the second engine is kind of the flip side of that coin. It's called cost push inflation. In this case, the problem isn't that everybody's trying to buy stuff. The problem is that it has suddenly gotten more expensive for businesses to make that stuff. A classic example is a sudden spike in the price of oil. That doesn't just make gas at the pump more expensive, it makes it more expensive to transport goods, to run factories, everything. When a business's costs go up, they have to do something to protect their profits, right? So they push those higher costs onto us, the consumers, in the form of higher prices.
This third engine is a bit different, and it's fascinating because it's all about psychology. It's called built-in inflation, and it's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. Here's how it works. If everybody starts to expect that prices are going to rise by, say, 3% next year, what do you think happens? Well, workers go to their bosses and say, hey, I need at least a 3% raise just to keep up. Then businesses, knowing they're going to have to pay higher wages, go ahead and raise their prices by 3% to cover those future costs. It creates this powerful loop, a wage price spiral, where the very expectation of inflation is what actually creates the inflation. It's a trip.
So now that we know where inflation comes from, it is super important to understand that it doesn't always move at the same speed. Just like a car, it can be crawling along, it can be cruising at a normal speed, or it can be totally out of control. So in Section 4, let's explore these different speeds, because the consequences are worlds apart.
This table lays it out nice and clear. First up, you got low inflation, somewhere in the 1 to 3% per year range. Now this might surprise you, but most economists actually think this is healthy. A little bit of inflation encourages people and businesses to spend and invest money instead of just hoarding cash that's slowly losing value. This keeps the economy moving. In fact, the target for most developed countries is right around 2%. Next, you get into high inflation, let's say 5 to 10% or even higher. This is where you really start to feel the burn. Your savings are noticeably shrinking, and it's a constant battle for your paycheck to keep up. Then you have the absolute worst-case scenario, hyperinflation. We're talking about prices rising by 50% or more per month. This is an economic disaster. It just destroys savings and can cause a total breakdown of society. And finally, there's the opposite, deflation, where prices are actually falling. Now that sounds amazing, right? But it is incredibly dangerous. Why? Because if you know that new TV is going to be cheaper next month, you'll wait to buy it. When everyone does that, spending grinds to a halt. Businesses lose money and they start laying people off, creating a terrible downward spiral. This brings us to what is maybe the most important section for your own personal finances. See, inflation isn't just some abstract economic thing, it's a force that is constantly, quietly redistributing wealth. It creates winners, and it absolutely creates losers. So, in Section 5, let's figure out who gets ahead and who gets left behind. So let's just ask the question directly. In this silent game of inflation that is always being played in the background, are you positioned to win, or are you set up to lose? The answer really depends on what you own and what you owe.
This slide breaks it down perfectly. Let's start with the losers. The number one biggest losers are savers and cash. If your money is just sitting in a checking or savings account earning practically nothing, inflation is like a Pac-Man, just gobbling up its value day after day. People on fixed incomes, like retirees on a pension that doesn't go up, also lose out because their income stays flat while all their costs are rising. And lenders can get hurt too. If you lend money at a 3% interest rate but inflation suddenly jumps to 5%, the money you get paid back is worth less than when you first lent it out. Now for the winners. Often the biggest winners are borrowers with fixed rate debt, like a mortgage. Think about it. If you have a 3% mortgage and inflation is running at 5%, your payment stays the same, but you get to repay that loan with future dollars that are worth less. You're paying it back with cheaper money. The other huge winners are asset owners, people who own things, real estate, stocks, commodities, often see the value of those assets rise right along with inflation or even faster. This is the ultimate defense mechanism.
You know, we've talked a lot about the big picture, but everyone's story with this is personal. Maybe for you, it's the shock you feel at the grocery store checkout. Maybe it's the price of gas or your rent going up. How has inflation actually affected your daily life? Take a second and let us know down in the comments. It's really powerful to see how these big economic ideas are hitting home for real people.
All right, we have covered the what, the why, and the who. Now it is time for the most empowering part of this whole conversation. What can you actually do about it?
Let's move to our final section, number 6, your financial game plan. This is all about how you can stop being a victim of inflation and start being someone who is ready for it.
Before we get into strategy, I want you to just stare at this number for a second. This right here is the brutal, devastating power of inflation over time. If you took $10,000 cash and just stuck it under your mattress and inflation averaged 5% a year, which is not that crazy, in just a decade, that money would only be able to buy what about $6,100 could buy today. You wouldn't have lost a single dollar bill, but you would have lost nearly 40% of your actual buying power. This is exactly why just saving money isn't enough. And this chart shows us the path forward. Look at that first bar. A typical savings account might give you what? 0.5% return? Now look at the second bar. The inflation rate, we'll just call it 3%. It's obvious, right? The savings account is losing the race. Your money is actually going backward. But then look at that third bar. That's the historical average return of the stock market. It's significantly higher than the rate of inflation. The key lesson here is that to build real wealth, your money has to be growing faster than inflation is eating it away. This is why investing isn't just for rich people. It's a fundamental tool for anyone who wants to secure their financial future.
Now, you aren't fighting this battle all by yourself. You'll often hear about the Federal Reserve, or the Fed, in the news. Basically, their main job is to keep inflation under control. When it gets too high, their number one weapon is to raise interest rates. This makes it more expensive to get a mortgage or a car loan and for businesses to borrow money. That cools down spending across the whole economy, which reduces demand and helps bring prices back down to a more stable level. So, let's do a super quick recap of everything we've learned. Number 1, inflation is just rising prices and falling money value. Simple. 2, it's measured by the CPI, which is that shopping basket. 3, it's caused by too much demand, rising costs, and what we all expect to happen. 4, and this is a big one, it hurts people who hold cash and helps people who own assets. 5, the Fed uses interest rates to try and control it. And finally, number 6, this is your main takeaway. Your personal goal has to be owning assets that can grow faster than inflation over the long haul.
Inflation isn't something you can escape, but it is something you can prepare for. And the people who win financially aren't the ones who ignore it, they're the ones who understand it and adjust their strategy accordingly. If this video helped you finally see inflation clearly, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's still wondering why their money doesn't go as far as it used to. Here at Invest Education Hub, we help you make clear, confident financial decisions that protect your future and unlock long-term growth. So, our final question for you is this. Now that you know how inflation works, what's the first change you'll make to your financial strategy?